Hey folks, Kacper here, movingtochicagoillinois.com. Today I want to talk about the National Association of Realtors class action lawsuit settlement that is pending approval and making headlines across the United States. A lot of people are freaking out about this settlement passing because it may change how buyers agents are paid in the market. If you've shopped for real estate in your lifetime, you likely found that as a buyer, you are not responsible for paying your buyer's agent's service fee for the work they did in helping you find and close on a home. Instead, the seller ended up paying that from the proceeds, the sale of the home that you purchased. Now going forward, this may be an additional cost that buyers have to bear. And this is already a difficult buyer's market with highly priced homes due to limited inventory and high demand. And so people are worried that this may force a lot of people out of the market that are looking for a home because they have this additional fee to pay on top of their closing costs, or they'll forego representation entirely, which may be problematic, especially in this difficult buyer's market where representation is more important than ever. Basically, there is an allegation that the National Association of Realtors and some other brokerages were involved in anti-competitive practices. The focus here is on what is called a cooperative compensation clause. This clause provides the seller an option to provide compensation to a buyer's agent for bringing them a ready, willing, and qualified buyer. So they would not only pay their listing agent, but also the buyer's agent. Now, this was always optional, but unfortunately, it seems like some sellers got the impression from the agents representing them that this was a non-negotiable term, that this was standard in the industry. Now, it may be a common practice, but by using terms like standard or making it seem non-negotiable, this starts bleeding into antitrust violation territory, anti-competitive actions. So the NAR, after an 11-day trial, a jury decided after an 11-day trial that this was anti-competitive, and the NAR decided to settle the matter. Part of that settlement would remove this clause from listing agreements in the future. What this implies is that listing agents will no longer have this conversation with their sellers. Basically, you guys couldn't handle it, so now we're going to remove that clause entirely and avoid the situation. And so now sellers will not have implicitly this conversation with their listing agents of whether or not they want to provide compensation for a buyer's agent in bringing them a ready, willing, and qualified buyer. Instead, a buyer's agent's going to have this conversation directly with their client and say, hey, just like any professional, this is my service fee. This is the work that I'm going to do for you for that fee. And for us to work together and for me to represent you, you're going to need to sign this contract, this buyer's agent agreement. So a lot of people are apprehensive about this because contracts are scary. I think that this is probably going to be a good thing. In any professional relationship, you're going to have to sign a contract to hire somebody. As an attorney, I do this all the time with retainers. I do not do any kind of legal work for anybody unless I have a retainer signed. That way I can officially start my representation of them. And likewise, buyer's agents are going to be doing the same thing. This is common when you hire a doctor to do a procedure for you, a contractor to do work on your home. I think this is just going to offer some more transparency in that relationship, and ultimately is going to be a good thing, even though it may be a change that a lot of people are a little bit apprehensive about. I think the real fear, though, is that if there's this additional fee on the buyer, will a lot of buyers be outpriced or disqualified from shopping for a home? Well, the question comes down to, will sellers stop paying buyers' agent fees outright? Will therefore buyers have to pay it out of pocket or forego representation altogether? Will this be the end of the buyer's agent? And then additionally, since sellers are no longer paying that fee, will home prices be reduced? Now, in short summary, I don't think any of these things are going to happen. When it comes down to providing a buyer's agent fee, the point of doing that is because it's a marketing strategy. And I have some people that came out to show some of my peers in the industry to give some more insight into these questions. But in short summary, first of all, sellers are not going to stop paying this because it's in their interest to pay this fee so they can get the most qualified, best offers on the table. It opens up their listing to represented buyers.
When I have taken on my listings representing the sellers, my goal was always to bring my own buyers. The reality is I may not have everyone in the market who is a buyer at that time, which is again why we would open this up to every single broker out there in every country globally to have a chance to bring their own buyers and buyer networks to this transaction.
That's the opportunity for me to connect with the databases or of the buyers of every agent in the world.
Buyers that have been pre-qualified by a professional, that means financially, and that means by experience and research. They've seen enough homes. They've done enough market research to know what a good deal is, and that when they're making an offer on a home, they're going to be really confident in it. They're going to stick to it.
You want to make sure that the person coming in that you're going to accept for your offer is not only qualified, but can stay and will stay at the table until the closing.
And they're going to have a buyer's agent that's going to help them get over any kind of speed bumps in the closing process that usually takes about 30 days. Problems can come up during inspection, attorney review, loan approval, acts of God, like if the basement floods. If a buyer is represented by a buyer's agent, they're going to be able to overcome these things so they can get to closing. Everybody in this deal wants this home to sell. The seller wants to sell it, and the buyer does want to buy it. But a seller's not going to be sure about how an unrepresented buyer is going to handle these speed bumps if they have nobody to lean against. The listing agent can't help the buyer. They have a fiduciary duty to the seller. And so this puts the unrepresented buyer in a difficult situation, puts the seller in a difficult situation where they may be unsure that the buyer may walk for no good reason, even though there's issues that come up that could be resolved if they had a buyer's agent backing them with expertise and the knowledge that they have.
So what, that we're going to get under contract with someone who doesn't have the representation at all, and maybe walking away from this deal,
Yes.
In the middle of the transaction. I had the situation that buyer didn't show up for the closing after 45 days waiting.
This circumstance robbed the seller of the opportunity to continue to list or have that property listed to someone else, because the moment they had an accepted offer, that understanding was that this particular buyer was going to buy the property. So now you've got 45 days absent from the market, from the opportunity to sell to someone who's more qualified.
A buyer's agent is going to really help them get through these bumps in the road. Again, this is not an adversarial process. Everybody wants to have this home closed. The seller wants to sell it. The buyer does want to buy it. And having a buyer's agent is just going to help them overcome the speed bumps, help them make an offer that they're confident in, so a seller isn't left in a position where they have to relist their home. Because that is going to be the worst case scenario for the seller. If they take in one offer, they probably said no to a bunch of other offers. Those other offerors probably have moved on to purchase something else, and now the seller's out of luck with respect to getting those, first week offers that are usually the strongest and by the most motivated buyers. Then they'll have to relist their home. That puts a bad mark on their listing. Other buyers might look at the home and say, hey, it was relisted. There must be some kind of problem with it. And so then they'll be a little bit apprehensive about taking a look at it. In an ideal scenario, a seller just wants to get one offer in and get that offer closed and move on with their lives. Delays is going to, mess with their life, life plans that they might have, moving into the next home, going on vacation, whatever the situation is. It's just ideal to just get it sold one time instead of having to relist. Going forward, I think sellers are going to look very closely at offers. They're going to see who is represented, who is unrepresented, and they may lean towards a represented buyer's offer, knowing that they can be more confident in that since that buyer is going to have somebody to lean against.
We have the human condition represented here in every single real estate transaction. And of course, you have anybody who is making an offer, they want to make sure that that offer will be accepted versus any other offer. And if they're not represented by a broker, they don't understand the market value. They don't know if they actually paid too much, too little. What are the comps? What are the other properties? They don't really understand what the entire process is. And so anyone coming in the market without a buyer representation would be very agent representation could be very likely to just walk away from the transaction.
A seller may decide not to pay that compensation or offer that compensation as a concession to the buyer in their listing agreement. And they may just want to rely on their listing agent to get them a buyer for their home out of their network or out of an online or physical ad of some kind.
And when I put the sign or when I, start advertise online, the people are calling me from online. But at that moment, I don't really know who is that person. I don't know if this person is qualified. I don't know if this person is educated on the process. I don't know any of this. And, for me right now to get involved and try to build the trust and with this buyer and see if he will be able to sign with me the dual agency agreement and to be led through this process, I think it's very risky for my seller.
Mainly in a dual agency situation, you allow and give both parties an opportunity to agree on everything and then move on. It is really in the seller's best interest for that buyer to be represented by their own broker.
But again, the listing agent cannot represent the buyer. Even in a dual agency agreement, that dual agency agreement still does not allow the listing agent to breach their fiduciary duty to the seller. So they cannot advise the buyer on whether or not this is a good deal, on what to look out for, on what to ask for credits for. All they can do is just mediate the deal by making sure that, hey, the buyer gets the earnest money deposited on time and in the correct way, in the right spot, that everything is done on time, and that they check in that they're doing all their loan approval stuff correctly. But otherwise they can't be there to assist like a buyer's agent would be able to. And also there's not that level of trust that like a buyer's agent would have with a buyer, because they've spent some time together shopping around. That buyer trusts in what their buyer's agent has to say because they've developed a relationship, and that buyer's agent has proven themselves by looking out for them.
I like to speak with this agent and see who is that buyer, how long do they work together, how many properties they have seen, how well they educated on the market, do they understand the process, and that gives me the insight that I can share with my seller and say, look, Mr. Seller, we are dealing with very experienced buyers who has a great relation with their agent. I don't think we're going to experience any difficulties to close this transaction. You know what's the worst for the sellers? Get under contract with somebody that cannot close. So for that reason, when I see that buyer coming with the agent, I can tell my seller, Mr. Seller, this buyer has working with the agent. I spoke with the agent. I have built the relationship, and I understand there is a trust built between this agent and the buyer, and for that reason, this is valuable buyer to us.
Now, with respect to sellers dropping the price on homes, I really don't think that would happen. And this is a really pragmatic reason. First of all, if a seller was interested in dropping their home listing price because they're not offering compensation for buyers' agents, then they're going to limit their offers to unrepresented buyers. Those are buyers that are going to be looking around in the market. They have no professional to lean against to give them all the market research so they can make a confident offer on the home. And so, sure, they'll, maybe be more favorable to buyers, but it'll only be unrepresented ones. So the smarter thing to do would just to be offer concessions to the buyer to pay their buyer's agent. This is going to encourage buyers that are looking at your home to go out and get representation, because you as a seller will cover it. That way you're going to get the most high quality, most motivated, most confident offers on the table, where if you just drop your home price, sure, you're going to get probably more interest, but you're going to get a bunch of unrepresented buyers, and frankly, those buyers' offers cannot be vetted.
Market values remain the same. They're affected by the demand on the property. The demand will not decrease in the market based on the commission that the seller was willing to pay, that would in the end go to a buyer. When I establish a specific price for a home, the specific price is within a very narrow margin. You look at what else has sold, you look at size, condition of the property, improvements, and area, of course. So when you set that price, it is irrespective of what someone would pay a buyer's broker. So that price and that value is set by the market, not by what they are saving in that nominal fee.
So I think that sellers are going to continue to offer this compensation because it's in their interest. I don't think that buyers are going to have to be paying buyers' agents out of pocket on top of all their other closing costs. I do think that if this settlement passes, we're going to see more buyers' agents agreements. That's going to be a requirement. And like I said before, it's just a contract, and I think it's a good thing because it does really empower your buyer's agent, just like any professional, to do a great job for you, to really represent you, make sure they get a good deal for you. That includes and is not limited to making sure that the seller pays their commission fee, so that you are not outpriced for making an offer on a home, so that the seller can get the most qualified, motivated offers on the table. If you guys have any questions about that, let me know. Happy to help I'm a real estate attorney here in Illinois. I focus on closings and estate planning, as well as a realtor. I help people buy, sell, and rent real estate on all sides of the transaction. And if you guys are looking to start your search yourself, that's always a great first step. Consider using movingtochicagoillinois.com. That's what I set up the site for, and my team will be there to help you set up a curated search that's targeted so we can really start getting down to exactly what you want out of your next home. And otherwise, thank you for watching. I really appreciate it. Make sure to like and subscribe. It helps out the channel, helps me get this info out to more people so we can kind of sift through all the alarming headlines out there. And once again, I don't think that many things are going to change. This probably is going to be a good thing if the settlement does pass, offer some more transparency between buyers and buyers' agents. And going forward, it's just a small thing, but I don't think that functionally, because of how sellers have been incentivized to pay this fee, much is going to change. In any case, thanks for watching. We will see you on the next one.